The morning at Fort Harlan began like any other cold wind. Loud footsteps and the smell of strong coffee mixing with the sound of soldiers shouting orders outside. But inside the base cafeteria, something unusual was about to happen. Something that none of the young soldiers could imagine. The door opened slowly, and an old man stepped in. He wore a faded red shirt, simple black pants, and boots that looked older than half the soldiers in the room. His hair was white, his face lined with years of stories, and his hands steady as stone. His name was Mr. Hale, and everyone believed he was only the man who served coffee at the base. But today, there was something different in the air when he walked in. He moved quietly, almost too quietly for someone his age. His steps made no sound. His eyes scanned the room not like a shy old man, but like someone who had been trained long ago to read danger before danger appeared. Most soldiers never noticed these small things. They only saw a gentle old man who carried a pot of coffee with a slow smile. But a few officers watched him with silent respect. They never said why. In the cafeteria, young soldiers joked and laughed loudly. They talked about training, weekend plans, and how tired they were. None of them paid attention to the door or to the wind that followed Mr. Hale inside, except one, Private Jensen. A new recruit was sitting near the entrance. He noticed the old man immediately. He saw how the officers straightened their backs when Mr. Hale walked by. He saw how some soldiers lowered their voices. It confused him. Why does everyone act strange around the coffee guy? He whispered to his friend. His friend shrugged. He's old. Maybe they respect him, Jensen frowned. No, this feels different. Mr. Hale moved from table to table, pouring coffee, nodding politely, giving a light smile, never speaking unless spoken to. He worked with slow, smooth movements, as if he had done this job his entire life. But there was no shake in his hands, no weakness in his steps. Nothing about him matched his age. Jensen kept watching at one table. Two soldiers joked loudly about how Mr. Hale poured coffee slower than a broken machine. Their voices carried across the room. Mr. Hale heard them, but he didn't react. He only smiled kindly, as if he had heard worse in his life and survived it. Jensen didn't like it. Something about Mr. Hale felt powerful, hidden, silent, but not weak. A few minutes later, an officer walked in. Commander Lewis. He was strict, tall, and known for never smiling. But when he saw Mr. Hale, he nodded with respect. A deep, meaningful nod. The kind a soldier gives only to someone who once saved his life. Jensen felt chills. Why would a senior officer nod to a coffee server? Inside the cafeteria, the air felt strange, heavy, almost like the calm before a storm. Nobody understood why, but everyone felt something was different about this morning. Mr. Hale continued pouring coffee. He reached the table near the window where a high-ranking general was expected soon. The seat was empty for now. He placed a cup there carefully, almost with ritual-like respect. Then he turned away. The cafeteria doors suddenly swung open again. This time, the atmosphere changed instantly. A tall man in a green-decorated uniform walked inside. Medals covered his chest. Ribbons lined his shoulders. His presence was strong enough to silence the loudest room, General Marcus. The entire cafeteria stood straighter. But General Marcus didn't look at them. His eyes locked immediately onto Mr. Hale, who stood at the far end of the room, holding a coffee pot. For a few long seconds, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Nobody even breathed. The general's face changed. First confusion, then shock, then something deeper. Something like a memory he had buried long ago. He slowly walked toward Mr. Hale, each step echoing across the silent room. Soldiers watched closely. Some looked confused. Others looked frightened without knowing why. Jensen whispered, "Why is the general walking toward the coffee guy?" His friend shook his head. "I don't know." Mr. Hale didn't move. He stood calm, still, waiting. His expression was unreadable. When the general stopped in front of him, the room became completely silent. Not a single spoon clinked. Not a single chair moved. Not a single soldier dared to blink. "Do you remember me?" the general asked softly. Mr. Hale gave a small smile. Many faces. Many ears. Hard to remember them all. The general did not smile back. Instead, he whispered one word, one name, one identity, one call sign so quietly that only Mr. Hale could hear it. But the silence in the room was so thick. Everyone heard it anyway. Night Watch. The reaction was immediate. A few soldiers gasped. Some dropped their spoons. Others stared at Mr. Hale with wide eyes, as if seeing him for the first time. Jensen froze completely. Night Watch. The legendary covert operator. The man whose missions were still classified? The soldier who vanished 20 years ago without a trace. A man the government never confirmed dead or alive? No one knew what Night Watch looked like. No one even knew if Night Watch was one person or a code for a whole team. And now the general had just looked at the old coffee server and called him that name. Mr. Hale stopped smiling. His eyes lowered for a second. A shadow of old pain crossed his face, quick, sharp, deep. Then he looked at the general again. "You shouldn't say that name here," he said quietly. The general leaned forward. "They need to know who you really are." Mr. Hale shook his head. "No, they don't." The entire cafeteria stayed silent, waiting, watching, trying to understand. Jensen felt his heart beating like a drum. The old man pouring coffee wasn't just a server. He wasn't just an old man. He wasn't forgotten. He was someone else. Someone dangerous. Someone legendary, in his past, had just walked back into the room. The arrival was complete. The truth was only beginning. For a long moment, nobody moved. The cafeteria stayed frozen, as if time itself had stopped the second the general spoke that. Forbidden call sign. Night Watch. The word echoed in the heads of every soldier inside the room. None of them understood its full meaning, but everyone felt its weight. It wasn't just a name. It was history. It was danger. It was something from the world of missions nobody talked about. Mr. Hale quiet. Gentle, slow Mr. Hale stood still with the coffee pot in his hand. His eyes didn't blink. His breath didn't move. His entire body looked like stone. General Marcus stepped closer, lowering his voice but still loud enough that the room heard every word. "I know it's you," he said. "No," Mr. Hale replied softly. "Yes," the general insisted. "You should forget that name." Jensen watched from his table, his hands shaking. His mind kept repeating the word, "Night Watch? Night Watch?" How could this old man be someone like that? Jensen had heard rumors during training. Every soldier had. Stories whispered in dark barracks. Stories about a man who completed impossible missions, who never left anyone behind, who disappeared before backup arrived. Some soldiers believed the stories were fake. Others thought Night Watch was the nickname of a whole team. Nobody thought Night Watch was real. Nobody thought Night Watch was alive. And now this old man in a red shirt, this coffee server was being called that name by a General. Jensen felt his chest tighten. The other soldiers leaned forward in their seats, afraid to speak, afraid to breathe too loudly. Some officers exchanged looks that said, "We know this name, and we hoped we'd never hear it again." The general pulled out a chair. "Sit with me," he said. Mr. Hale didn't move for a moment. Then he slowly placed the coffee pot on the table and sat down. His face stayed calm, almost too calm. But something behind his eyes felt heavy, like a door inside him had been forced open. The general leaned forward, elbows on the table. "You disappeared without a trace," he said. "Everyone thought you were dead." Mr. Hale didn't respond. "You saved my life," the general continued. "I owe you more than I can ever repay." Mr. Hale closed his eyes for a moment. It wasn't a peaceful moment, more like someone trying to hold back memories that were too sharp, too painful. "I left that world behind," he said. "No," the general replied. "That world never left you." A wave of whispers rose from the soldiers. Jensen felt pressure in his chest, like he was witnessing something he wasn't supposed to see. Something classified. Something dangerous. Mr. Hale finally opened his eyes. "What do you want, Marcus?" he asked quietly. The general didn't answer right away. He looked around the cafeteria, making sure every soldier was watching. Then he said the words that shook the room even more. "It's time they know the truth." A few soldiers gasped softly. Jensen looked at his friend, who looked back with wide, terrified eyes. Nobody understood what truth meant, but everyone knew it wasn't small. Mr. Hale shook his head almost sadly. "They don't need to know who I was," he said. "Let them live without my shadows." The general tapped his finger on the table. "Your shadows saved lives. And cost lives too," Mr. Hale replied. "Cost lives too," Mr. Hale replied. This time the room grew even quieter. The cafeteria doors opened suddenly, and Captain Morris entered with a stack of papers. He took 2 steps before realizing the entire room was watching something. His eyes followed their gaze and landed on Mr. Hale and the general. A strange expression crossed his face. Recognition, fear, respect. He walked backwards slowly, almost as if he didn't want to interrupt something sacred. General Marcus lowered his voice. "You can't hide forever." Mr. Hale looked up, and for the first time something sharp appeared in his eyes. Something like anger, but deeper, older. "I'm not hiding," he said. "I'm trying to forget." The general shook his head slowly. "Some men don't get to forget." The room felt cold when he said that. A spoon clinked against a metal tray. One soldier's hand had started shaking. Another soldier whispered, "This is crazy. He's just a coffee man." But he didn't sound convinced. Mr. Hale folded his hands. His voice was quiet but strong. "I'm not night watch anymore. That man died years ago." The general leaned in closer. "If that man died, then why do your eyes still scan every exit? Why do you always sit with your back to the wall? Why do you react to every loud sound before anyone else?" Mr. Hale didn't answer, but the soldiers finally understood something. They had always noticed these strange habits. They had always felt something different about him, but never questioned it. The general continued, "You trained half of the Special Forces divisions this country has today. You led the most dangerous missions of our time. You disappeared after the last operation because you blamed yourself for something that wasn't your fault." Mr. Hale's jaw tightened. Jensen leaned forward, heart racing. "What operation? What happened?" He needed to know. The general sighed. "Night watch. You were the best of us." Mr. Hale opened his eyes again. There was no smile now. No softness, just a deep, silent pain. "I was never the best," he said. "I was simply the last one to survive." Every soldier felt that sentence hit like a punch. Silence again. Jensen had goosebumps running up his arms. This wasn't just a story. This wasn't just an old man with a past. This was something darker. Something real. Finally, Mr. Hale stood up slowly. "I don't want this attention," he said. "It's too late," the general replied. "They've already heard the name." The soldiers watched as Mr. Hale walked away from the table, moving toward the kitchen door. But before he reached it, he stopped. His back stiffened. He turned around. His voice was calm, but it held a sharp edge. "None of you repeat that call sign. Not here. Not anywhere." Nobody dared to speak. He left the cafeteria quietly, the door closing behind him like the end of a chapter. But for every soldier watching, this was only the beginning. The name Night Watch would not be forgotten, and neither would the questions it brought with it. Mr. Hale walked out of the cafeteria with slow, steady steps. The sound of the door closing behind him felt louder than it should. Every soldier inside kept staring at the door long after he had disappeared, as if expecting it to swing open again. But it didn't instead. Silence settled over the room like a heavy fog. General Marcus remained seated, staring at the table where Mr. Hale once stood. His hands were clenched, his jaw tight. He looked like a man who had opened a door he wasn't sure he should have opened. Private Jensen whispered, "What now?" General Marcus finally looked up. "Finish your meals," he said quietly, but his voice held no authority this time. It only held guilt. The soldiers didn't move. They didn't eat. They didn't talk, because the name still echoed in the air. Night watch, outside the cafeteria, Mr. Hale walked down the silent hallway. His footsteps remained calm, but inside his mind, storms were waking up. Memories locked away for decades were pushing against the walls he had built around them. He reached a storage room, opened the door quietly, and stepped inside. The room smelled of old wood and machine oil. He leaned against the wall and closed his eyes, and the memories broke through. Not like old gentle flashes, but like a flood, the snowstorm, the burning wreckage, the screams, the radio going silent. The look on a young soldier's face, the one he couldn't save. Mr. Hale pressed his hand against his forehead. He whispered, "Not now, not again." But the memories didn't listen. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, the soldiers finally began to whisper again, carefully, nervously. Jensen's friend leaned close. "Is Night Watch real?" "I don't know," Jensen answered. But the general spoke like he was. Commander Lewis entered the room again, looked around, and noticed the strange atmosphere. Before he could speak, General Marcus stood up. "Everyone back to work," he ordered. His voice returned to its usual strength, but the soldiers could tell he wasn't himself. They obeyed quickly. Leaving the general alone in the cafeteria, he sat down again and stared at the empty chair across from him. The chair where Mr. Hale had sat only minutes ago. "You shouldn't have said that name," someone said behind him. It was Captain Morris. General Marcus didn't turn around. "They deserved to know." "No," Morris replied, stepping forward. "They deserve to be safe." Marcus sighed heavily. "You think saying one old call sign puts them in danger?" Maurice looked him in the eye. "With him?" "Yes." Marcus finally stood. "I need to talk to him, alone." Maurice grabbed his arm. "Be careful. He is not the man you remember." Marcus didn't answer. He walked out of the cafeteria and followed the hallway quietly. Inside the storage room, Mr. Hale breathed slowly, trying to calm the storm inside. But memories kept ripping through him. A shadowy night mission. Snow falling silently. A wounded soldier calling his name, calling "Night Watch," and the explosion. His chest tightened. His hands trembled for the first time in years. He opened his eyes and saw General Marcus standing in the doorway. "You shouldn't have followed me," Hallie said softly. Marcus stepped inside and closed the door. "We didn't finish our conversation." Hala stayed silent. "You can't run from this," Marcus said. "I'm not running," Hala replied. "I walked away." Same thing. Hale opened his eyes fully now. "Why now? Why, after all these years?" Marcus swallowed. "Because something is happening. Something big. And we need know." I'll cut him off with surprising force. "You don't need me. You never needed me." Marcus lowered his voice. "You don't understand? It's not about need. It's about responsibility." Hale looked away. "That word ruined my life once." Marcus sighed. "You disappeared because you blamed yourself for that operation." "And I still do," Hallie said quietly. He closed his eyes again, and another memory hit him, running through smoke. Carrying a soldier twice his size, hearing gunfire behind him, hearing the soldier whisper, "Go, just go." Then feeling his grip loosen forever, Hale opened his eyes quickly, fighting back the memories. Marcus watched him carefully. "You're shaking." Hale forced his hand still. "It's just old bones," no, Marcus said softly. "It's old ghosts." Back in the hallway, Ensign was walking toward the training yard when he suddenly stopped near the storage room. He didn't mean to eavesdrop, but two voices were coming through the door. He recognized them instantly. General Marcus. Mr. Hale. Jensen leaned closer, but quietly, not wanting to alert anyone. Inside, Marcus's voice rose slightly. "You can't hide your skills anymore. The soldiers already saw you." Gila replied calmly. "Skills don't make a hero," Marcus said. "You trained half the heroes standing in that cafeteria." Hale's voice turned bitter. "And the other half died under my command." Jensen's eyes widened. Inside, Hale continued speaking quietly. I won battles nobody knows about, and I lost men whose names deserve to be written in the sky. But I could not save them." "I could not save him." Marcus stepped closer. "It wasn't your fault." Hal shook his head slowly. "That boy believed in me. Until his last breath." Jensen stepped back from the door, chills running through him. This was not the story he expected. This was deeper, darker. Real dot inside the room again. Marcus placed a hand on Hale's shoulder. You can't change the past, he said. But maybe you can stop someone else from repeating it. Hale looked up. His eyes held years of pain, but behind that pain was something else, something strong, something still alive. Why did you really come here today, Marcus? Marcus took a slow breath. Because a threat is rising, and there is only one man who knows how to stop it. Hale shook his head. I am not that man anymore. Marcus looked directly into his eyes. Yes, you are. Hale fell silent. His past was not done with him. His memories had returned, and now his future was calling him back into the shadows he tried to escape. Outside the storage door, Jensen whispered to himself, Night watch. Who are you really? And the story of the forgotten legend was only beginning to unfold. The room fell silent after the sudden explosion shook the old military wing. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Everyone froze, except Daniel. The simple coffee server, the man people once ignored, suddenly stood firm like an active soldier ready for action. His eyes sharpened. His breathing slowed. His old training switched on like a hidden engine coming back to life. General Hawkins stared at him. Viper, I knew this day would come, the general whispered. Daniel didn't look back. He moved toward the door, scanning every corner with old instincts. The young cadets, still shocked, followed him with their eyes. They had never seen a civilian move with such speed and control. Everyone stay inside, Daniel ordered calmly. His voice held authority, the kind that soldiers trust, even without knowing why. The hallway outside filled with smoke. Emergency alarms screamed. Daniel walked through the smoke as if he had been waiting for this exact moment. His mind carried memories he had buried long ago, missions, codes, lost comrades. And the last operation that ended his military career, he had promised never to return to that world. But the world returned to him. General Hawkins soon joined him. You already know what's happening, don't you? The general said quietly. Daniel gave a nod. This is the same pattern as Operation Black Echo, he replied. Someone triggered a false alarm to reach the restricted vault. The general's face turned pale. That vault holds everything about your last mission. Daniel didn't need to hear more. He knew exactly who would come for those files. A man named Raven. Once Daniel's closest teammate, now the reason he quit the military forever. Daniel and the general ran toward the vault corridor. As they reached the corner, Daniel raised a hand, signaling the general to stop. Someone was inside the vault. Daniel could sense it. The air shifted. A shadow moved. A voice came through the darkness. Well. Viper, still alive. Raven stepped into the light. A tall man with cold eyes and a smile sharp enough to cut iron. He held the classified drive in his hand. You left everything behind. Thinking the past won't follow you, Raven said. But I never forget. Daniel stepped forward, calm but fierce. That mission was your fault, Daniel replied. I protected the team. You betrayed them, Raven laughed softly. And now you serve coffee in a quiet base. Almost sad. Daniel didn't blink. Put the drive down, Raven. You don't want this to end the old way. The tension wrapped the hallway like a tightening rope. For a moment, even the alarm seemed to quiet down. Then Raven charged. The fight was silent, controlled, deadly. Two old soldiers moving with perfect precision. Daniel blocked, countered, and moved like he had never left the battlefield. Raven pushed forward, but Daniel's stance never broke. With one final strike, Daniel disarmed him and pinned him to the wall. The drive fell to the floor. Raven looked into Daniel's eyes. You're still Viper, he said bitterly. No matter how much you pretend? Daniel didn't answer. He locked Raven's hands and waited for the military police to arrive. General Hawkins walked forward, pride clear on his face. You saved this base, the general said. The truth is, you were never just a coffee server. Daniel looked at the fallen drive. I just wanted peace, he whispered. And you earned it, the general replied. But the world. The world may still need Viper. Daniel didn't respond, but deep inside, he knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something he thought he had buried forever. Fade out. Suspenseful ending. The end. The end.